Okay. Okay. So we're going to try to get through as much as this as possible. So we're going to start by talking about systems thinking and systems theory before we dive into Bowen's theory. Okay. So let's go over a brief history of systems theory. So systems theory actually emerged after World War II with the rise of technology and the need to understand human behavior in relation to machines and its processes. The founder, which is on your right, Ludwig von Bertalanffy. Don't know if I said that right, but I can't ask him. So we're just going to go with that for now. He was a key figure in the development of general systems theory, and he proposed it in the 1940s through the 1950s. And he created a book called General Systems Theory, where he established the fundamental laws that were applied to different scientific fields. Now, this is something that makes systems theory unique because it's not just applied to psychology, it's actually applied to other sciences like biology and technology and organizational studies. So this is a very foundational theory that we're talking about. And it influenced family systems theory. He believed that complex systems were made up of interacting parts that influenced and impacted each other, and that there were general rules and principles that could be applied across different sciences to integrate them. So this is the idea that we're not just looking at a single part. We're looking at the whole picture. If we're looking at a client, we can't just look at the client and what they're presenting with you. We got to look at the different systems that impact the client. And we're going to go into more detail about what a system is. And the goal was to break down the barriers between natural and social science and bring them together in an interdisciplinary way. A little bit about the founder. He is again credited with developing family or general systems theory, and he was a biologist. He decided to study biology as opposed to philosophy, but then developed his groundbreaking theory, which is general systems theory. And again, it was meant to bring all of the different sciences together so that we can understand the whole person. If you asked him, how would you describe general systems theory? He would tell you, general systems theory, therefore, is a general science of wholeness, the meaning of somewhat mystical expression. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. It's simply the constitutive character are not explainable from the characteristics of isolated parts. The characteristics of the complex, therefore, appear as new or emergent. Now, that's huge, right? That's a lot of words, right? But if we break it down, systems are just cohesive group of elements, components, or individuals that come together and form a whole structure or organization. If you think about this class, right? This class in itself is a system, and we're dependent on one another to function. I am dependent on you guys being here in order for me to lecture, and you guys are dependent on me to sit here and teach you about family systems theory. But we are still a part of a bigger, more complex system. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Any events that influence one another of the group have an impact on all of the other units, parts, and individuals in the system, which is true. If you guys didn't show up today, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I'd freak out. And if I didn't show up today, you guys would freak out. And so we are dependent on one another. So again, a system is made up of components that are linked and dependent on one another. And a complex system is a larger integrated system that is composed of numerous smaller systems used frequently in social sciences. So remember, I said that this class is a system, but we are a part of a bigger system. The university itself is a complex system made up of smaller systems, smaller classrooms, smaller programs. All of us come together to create the university, and we're all dependent on one another. We can't focus on just one class and give all the needs and benefits to one class. We have to focus on the entire system for the system to work appropriately. So again, the class is a system, The complex system would be the university, just as an example. Ecological systems, the different systems in a person's life that affect their behavior. So remember, I said when we work with clients, we can't just focus on maybe just the mental stuff that's dealing with them, right? There are other systems in play that kind of play a role in their behavior, their symptoms, and their worldview. For example, if you're a woman of color or a man of color or a person of color, policies and politicians, that system impacts your symptoms, behaviors, and your worldview, right? Not only that, but the schools you go to, the community you live in, your family, all of those different systems come together and shape who you are. Ignoring one of them might not give us a full picture. And so an ecological system represents all of those different systems that a person can be a part of. Homeostasis, you may have heard of this term. It's the system's stable state of conditions. A system strives to achieve equilibrium at all times. Now, with homeostasis, a person's homeostasis can be good or bad. When you see clients, a lot of the times their set of homeostasis is actually pretty negative. I could give you an example. Let's say a family has a father who abuses alcohol. Well, their homeostasis has adapted around dad's alcohol abuse. Little Timmy goes into his room every time he sees dad drinking. Little Susie goes off and hangs out with her friends. Mom calls her friends and complains to her mom. Everyone in the system knows how to adapt to dad's drinking, even though dad's drinking causes conflict in the family. Now, what happens when dad suddenly gets sober? Well, when we disrupt our client's homeostasis, there can be chaos and resistance. Now you're thinking, well, wouldn't they want dad to stop drinking? Yes, but they never adapted to dad who's not drinking. What if dad now wants to spend time with Timmy and Susie? And Timmy and Susie have a little bit of resentment towards dad. And so they don't want to spend time with dad. They start arguing with dad. They start criticizing dad about how he wasn't always there. So even though dad is now sober and trying to create a presence, they're resisting. It's causing chaos. It's causing conflict within the system. And so sometimes the system will try to go back to normal, and dad might start drinking again to cope with his disappointment with how Susie and Timmy are reacting to him being sober. Or they will maintain that new homeostasis, that new norm, and eventually adapt. So both are possible. Katina?
So, because when I used to work in a rehabilitation facility, this is kind of how I hear you saying this. Like when a person goes into rehab, and because they've gone into rehab and they're a different person, the people that they live with or their immediate family, it kind of has to switch because now that person is healthy, and it's kind of hard for them to switch because they're not used to that. They're not used to the sober person. They're used to the person that was on the drugs or the alcohol. Is
Mm-hmm.
that so? Is that what you're saying? Basically saying?
Yeah, and it's not always the case. With psychology, the answer is always it depends. But in most cases, yeah, you'll see that where a client who struggled with substance abuse his whole life gets sober and tries to re-engage inside of the family system, and the family doesn't know how to deal with it, and so it causes arguments, conflict, and then that person might feel like, why did I even get sober if this was the response I'm going to receive? Now this isn't always the case, and sometimes someone's homeostasis norm is productive, but it is possible that there's unproductive homeostasis, and it takes time for the system to then either adapt and change along with whatever we're providing when they come to our clinics and stuff like that, or they'll go back to what their norm is, right? For example, if I'm saying I want to get fit, I can decide to make changes and eat healthier, go to the gym, but there's going to be chaos with that because this is new for me. I'm going to want to eat that donut. I'm going to be tired of going to the gym. I might get frustrated, but if I stay with that, I will create a new norm and I'll have a healthier lifestyle. But if I don't, then I'm gonna just go back to my old habits. So with homeostasis, it tries to maintain that balance by going back to what we're used to. But if a family or a system resists that, it can create a new homeostasis. And that leads us to the next topic, which is adaptations, but we're going to get to that after Sherry's question.
So it's more of like a comment to add on to what you're saying about balance. What's helped me out with that, with this concept of homeostasis, is thinking of a chair with 4 legs, and then one of them gets cut down, and the other 3 legs can no longer keep in balance because now that one leg is cut shorter. And so a lot of the times, like using your example of the dad reverts back because now the chair has to keep him in balance.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Great example. Our bodies do that too. If we are out of our regular temperature, like if we get sick, our body will either shiver, like if we're too cold, our body will shiver in order to warm us up to get us to our normal temperature. If we're too hot, our bodies will sweat in order to get us back to our normal temperature. So this applies to many different things in life. And it applies to family dynamics too, as in my example with the dad. So again, families or systems can adapt to new changes. And it won't always be easy. You'll see that once you start working with clients. You give them a tool and you're like, just do this. And it won't always work the first time we throw it at them. But they do have the ability to adapt. And so an adaptation is a system's ability to adapt in order to defend itself when faced with novel or new external conditions. Okay? And so what are some assumptions of systems theory? So again, systems theory is based on the idea that complex systems are made up of smaller systems, our class versus the university, and that interactions between these smaller systems create a larger complex system. Again, we all communicate within each other. We make up the university. This one class is part of a bigger system. The interactions between the smaller system are what give rise to the complex system, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Systems theory is not just about the individual's health, but also how interactions between these different units impact the individual's health. So if we look at this diagram to the right, you see the individual in the center towards the bottom. And when we think of the individual, we think of knowledge, attitudes, and skills. Imagine if we only focused on a client's knowledge, attitudes, and skills. How much change can we create? There's other systems that play like a role in this client's life. There's interpersonal systems, their families, friends, social networks, right? If I don't have a great family dynamic, I could tell you that's going to impact my health. If my friends are truly enemies, I might not feel so great about myself. I might feel lonely, right? Organizations like your job, your school, your social institutions, right? If you hate your job, how happy are you going to be? Your community and relationships between your community. How do you feel in your community? Do you feel respected, honored, cherished, or is it hostile? And public policy, this one is one that often gets ignored. Policies, regulations, laws, systematic racism, discrimination, all of those things can impact your client's mental health. And so it's important that we acknowledge those and work through those with the clients. And we're thinking about those things, right? Okay, so systems theory proposes that certain fundamental concepts and principles can be applied universally in other fields. I gave you an example of how that works. Our bodies regulate our body temperature, right? So that's a concept of systems theory that is also applied to biology, even though these fields have independent histories and development, right? Even our biology can impact how our mental health is. If we have certain health conditions, that might impact, for those of you who want to get into medical therapy, that can impact your client's overall well-being and mental status. This universality is important for professionals like social workers and psychologists, as it allows them to apply systems theory in a way that is helpful to the individuals that we're assisting. So if we're looking at the whole person, we can provide greater change in our clients. Some other assumptions are that systems theory assumes that the search for a dynamic stability is ongoing in systems. We're constantly going through different changes. And so we're constantly having to either adapt or go back to our norm. Systems strike a balance between stability and change. Again, are we going to go back to our previous homeostasis, or are we going to adapt and create a new norm? So a system tends to want to either retain itself or not undergo frequent change. So going through a lot of changes can be hard for a client. So I don't know if you guys ever heard of SMART goals, where we make small, realistic, achievable, timely goals with our clients. That's because if we throw too much at a client at once, they're going to freak out. They're going to be like, you're crazy. And then they're going to beat themselves up because they can't achieve all of those unrealistic changes. So there is stress in the system because of the upcoming change. So it has to take action. It either has to adapt with the change, or it has to go back to what it was normally used to. And so again, a person has those two options. An open system is a system that permits input or output, which permits adaptability. A closed system has less input and output flow, which reduces adaptability. And so how does this relate to psychology? Because again, systems theory can be used for a bunch of different sciences. It looks at how people behave and interact in context of complex systems, the different systems that we're all a part of. People, communities, populations, and other groups are viewed as homeostatic systems. We like to stay in our norm. And systems psychology examines the bigger picture of how these systems and the complex system interact in order to get insight into human behavior. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand how being a part of all of these different aspects of our lives impact the human being and their behavior. So I have an example. I have Sarah here. I just made her up, but this is actually a very common case if you decide to work with children or adolescents, right? And I heard lots of you saying that this is a population you want to work with. So we have Sarah. She's labeled a troubled kid, has problems with substance abuse. She's labeled promiscuous. She ditches school, has poor grades. She's a runaway, and she's been arrested 3 times for prostitution. So what are some stereotypes that people might assume about Sarah? And what are some hidden things that we might not even know about Sarah that may be impacting her livelihood? Katina.
People might just assume that she's just a waste of time. Like she is just always in trouble. She's never going to change. And because she's a runaway and all these other things, that she's just a problem and it's too much to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And what are some things that we may not know about Sarah that can be contributing to her lifestyle?
She may have been abused. She may have been molested. Um, she may not even have family. You know, what if she's from a different country, her family, they got separated? I mean, any of that could have happened.
Exactly.
Or she could be doing sorry, she could be engaging in prostitution just to meet her daily needs, eating, living. We don't know what she's doing it for.
Exactly. Great points. Angel?
They can assume that she's just being a hoe to be a hoe. Like they said, just promiscuous. Something that they would not consider is, well, I think Katina says something may have happened to her. She may have also witnessed something happen to somebody else, or know of something, and then like you got to keep a secret. Ditching school, poor grades. A lot of times when kids got to keep stuff secret, they act out, and 95% of the time that acting out happens at school. Running away, they're just going to assume it's because she's on drugs or whatever, being arrested for prostitution. Honestly, for teenagers, I don't really understand why that they're arrested for prostitution under a certain age, because really that's human trafficking. But that's not my cross to bear. But yeah, that.
Okay, good points. And then Mariana.
So basically her behavior and her label could be, I'm sorry, my voice, I have some laryngitis, could be the result of a failed system and not as much as personal. However, could be, personal as well and failed system. So it has to be closely analyzed, and I don't think it's only a personal in anybody. I mean, very rarely, probably almost at all, could be only a personal problem and not caused by some systemic influence of a child's behavior.
Exactly. Katina, I see your hand up. Were you putting it back up or?
Yeah, I was putting it back up because it's talking about how she ditches school and has poor grades. She could have learning disabilities.
That's very possible, right? Look at how much we were able to disclose or discover just by really examining the bigger person, not just looking at what was presented surface layer, right? So let's look into a little bit about Sarah's life. So I think, Katina, you said it. Sarah was sexually abused by her father. Her mother was addicted to alcohol and meth and would often be physically violent towards Sarah when she would become angry. She was placed in the foster home where she was taught to believe that she was worthless by her foster parents, resulting in her runaways. Sarah was forced into sex trafficking. I think, Angel, you said that, by her pimp, Donald. And despite regular beatings from her pimp, she still believes Donald has shown her more love than she has ever experienced. And she uses drugs to escape from her human suffering. And Sarah lacks any community or family support. I know that says of, but it's supposed to say or. And so look at all of the different systems that kind of played a role into Sarah's life. These systems have failed Sarah. Her family system, her father was sexually abusing her. Her mother was an addict. Her foster home, that's another system that failed her because she was put into a foster system where her foster parents made her believe that she was worthless. And then any public policies, it's not disclosed here, but Angel, you were right. Why are teenagers being arrested for being human trafficked? Is that really their fault? So then that's public policy, a system that has failed Sarah. All of these different systems have contributed to her livelihood, her symptoms, her behavior, and possibly her worldview. And so that's why systems theory helps us, because it allows us to see the individual as many layers, not just what is surface and brought to our attention immediately. So what are natural systems and natural systems theory? So natural systems are ecosystems, biological systems, and physical systems, and are just a few examples of complex natural systems that are studied within that theory. The idea places a strong emphasis on how different parts of a system are interdependent and interrelated, and how they work together to complete a full system. Let me check on time. Okay. So natural systems theory is a specific framework used to study complex natural systems, such as ecosystems, biological organisms, and physical systems. The theory emphasizes the interdependence and interconnectedness of various components within a system and how they work together to create a whole system. This idea of holism is the concept that asserts that a whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Very similar. We're hearing a lot of similar ideology, right? It emphasizes that the system should be studied as a whole rather than breaking them down into individual components. This idea of interdependence, natural systems are made up of various interconnected components that interact with one another, right? Very similar to what we've been discussing. Change to one component can have a ripple effect throughout the whole system, right? That chaos within the homeostatic system. Everything is sounding pretty similar, right? I'll explain how they're different in a minute. Equifinality is that idea that natural systems can achieve the same end result or goal through different means. If we're both going to the library and you take the freeway and I take the streets, these are different routes, but we're going to the same destination. And so this theory emphasizes that. In other words, there are multiple pathways to the same outcome. Feedback loops. Natural systems have feedback mechanisms that allow them to adjust and adapt to changes in their environment. Feedback loops can be positive, reinforcing, or negative, balancing. And we'll get more into feedback loops in just a moment. And then self-organization. Natural systems have the ability to self-organize and maintain stability and balance, even in the face of external disturbances. So what is the difference? So general systems theory is a broader approach. It's complex. It studies complex systems that are applied to a wide range of fields, including psychology, sociology, engineering, and economics. And it focuses on the general principles that are applicable across different systems and is concerned with understanding organizations, behavior, and evolution of systems. It emphasizes the interdependence and interconnectedness of various components within a system and its interactions between them. Whereas natural systems theory pretty much does the same thing, but is specific. It's specific to studying natural systems, such as ecosystems, biological organisms, and physical systems. So that's the big difference between them, okay? Otherwise, a lot of these same concepts are going to be carried over to both theories. Cybernetics, this topic, we're not going to really dive deep into it. This is just going to be a taste of what cybernetics is. Just for the purpose of this course, you're not going to have to know much about what cybernetics is. But as an introduction to what it is, cybernetics is the systems theory that are closely related field, and systems theories are actually closely related. And they both analyze complex systems and have different origins and approaches. So cybernetics is a study of how systems can regulate themselves and make adjustments based on feedback. A system can be anything from a machine to an organism to a social organization, and it aims to understand how information is processed and communicated within a system and how that system can use that information to control its behavior. Going back to feedback loops, it's the process of a system receiving information about its own behavior and using that information to adjust its behavior. So again, a feedback can be negative, where the system adjusts its behavior to correct for errors, or positive, where the system reinforces that behavior based on positive outcomes. And then cybernetics also focuses on communication control mechanisms within a systems and uses mathematical models and simulations to understand how these mechanisms work and how they can be designed and optimized. So now we're diving into family systems theory. And I'm just looking at the time. So family systems theory, which was created by Dr. Bowen in 1946, sees the family as an intricate system with its own mechanisms and feedback loops. Family systems theory evaluates how members engage and interact to affect one another's behavior. So when we're thinking about family systems theory, we're thinking about similar concepts that are in general systems theory, but just applying it to the family dynamic. And we're adding a few more concepts, right? But there's this idea that we are impacted, our behavior, our symptoms, our worldview is influenced by our experiences within our family systems. And that's what this is going to kind of unravel for us all. So an introduction to family systems theory. This theory proposes that families are emotional units where each member is connected and influenced by one another. Bowen believed that families' emotional system has a significant impact on each member's functioning and behavior. He emphasized the importance of understanding the family's patterns of interactions, communication, and emotional process. And he suggested that family members operate within a set of roles and rules that can be examined and modified to improve its functioning. Bowen highlighted the importance of differentiation of the self, which refers to the ability of individuals to separate their own emotions and thoughts from those of their family members. This can sometimes be a difficult concept to understand. We're going to have a whole lecture on it, but essentially, it's this idea that you can believe something and I could believe something and they could be totally different, and I'm not reactive to your beliefs, even though we're totally different. I can still be myself. I could still accept your beliefs and not have an emotional response. The theory suggests that family members can reduce anxiety and improve functioning by developing a better understanding of their own emotional processes and of those of their family members. And it has been influential in family therapy and has been able to help families improve communication, resolve conflicts, and develop healthier relationships. In this class, we're going to go over the 8 concepts of Bowen theory. So the first concept is the family is a system. So his theory views the family as a system where each member is interconnected and interdependent on each other. There's this idea of triangles. Again, we're going to go over these concepts in more detail in future sessions, but triangles are a key concept of Bowen's theory and refer to the smallest stable relationship unit in a family, typically formed by 3 members. Bowen believed that triangles play a significant role in family dynamics. As we go through this course, you'll see how a therapist could sometimes be triangulated with their clients. So that will be interesting. Differentiation of the self. This concept refers to an individual's ability to separate their own emotions and thoughts from those of their family members. Bowen believed that developing a high level of differentiation of the self is essential for emotional maturity and healthy relationships. The nuclear family emotional system. Bowen proposed that families experience a predictable set of emotional patterns and reactions that can be seen across generations. The family projection process. This process occurs when parents unconsciously project their own unresolved emotional issues onto their children. The transmission process. This process refers to how emotional patterns and issues are transmitted across generation after generation and after generation, and you'll see those patterns take place when you start working with families. The emotional cutoff. This concept refers to a strategy used by some individuals to distance themselves emotionally from their family of origin, which can lead to unresolved emotional issues. What's interesting is the creator of this theory actually did an emotional cutoff with his family. He didn't speak to them for several years when he created this theory. Sibling position. Bowen believed that an individual position in the family birth order and the relationship with siblings can play a significant role in shaping their personality and behavior. And that's all we have for today. Just a brief introduction. But I know that we're getting short onto time. Mariana.
So what do we present next week on the 8 concepts of Bowen's theory?
So yeah, just the 8 concepts of Bowen systems theory.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a little bit. You're just doing a review.
Of the 8 concepts, right?
Of just the 8 concepts.
Okay,
You don't
perfect.
have to do systems theory.
Yeah, thank you.
Good question. Shannon?
I missed number 4 on the 8 concepts. Can you just like let me know what that one was real fast, please?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Number 4 is the nuclear family emotional system, where he proposed that families experience a predictable set of emotional patterns and reactions that can be seen across generations. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. really quickly, we're not going to go into groups this week just because this discussion doesn't really require that you guys go into groups. It's basic questions. But starting next week, you guys will be in your groups. I will put the list of group members and your presentations out on Canvas, and I will try to also send it as an announcement. I just want to show you a couple of things on Canvas, and then I'll set you guys free because I want to get you guys out on time, okay? Okay. So on Canvas, if you go here where it says welcome and course information, you will see my contact information, my phone number, and email address. My email address was not here earlier today. There was an issue with it, so they finally fixed my email, and it will be here for you guys, okay? But again, in emergencies, contact me via text or call, okay? And then your assignments this week, I just want to make sure you guys have a clear understanding. You're going to go to the discussion. Does everyone know how to use Canvas by now? So I'm not sounding redundant. Okay, great. We're just going to breeze through this part. This is going to be your discussion for this week. You're just going to pretty much, we would have went into small groups, but because of the syllabus, you're just going to answer these questions outside of your groups. Next week, you guys will be in your groups. For the people presenting next week, I apologize. We got short of time, but try to meet out and just decide maybe one, do the first 4 concepts, the other person do the other 4 concepts if possible. Angel?
I already forgot my question.
Think
I
about
already
it. Come
forgot
back
my
to
question.
It's okay. Think about it. Mariana?
So when we respond on Canvas to our group, is it on Canvas or on the in the group? Like we find on Canvas that our groups post, our group members post, and then respond to them?
After today's lecture, I'm going to go in and create your groups. That way, when you work on your discussion post, you'll only see your group members. You won't be able to see anyone else.
Wow. Okay, but for
I think that was my question.
Okay. Yeah, but give me like
Like-
30 minutes to an hour. I'm gonna be and getting it all in there for you guys.
But for the next week, we will just look at our group members post and reply on Canvas on.
Yeah, so like I said, after this class, I'm gonna separate you guys in your groups in Canvas, so that way when you guys respond, you should only see your group members. Great question. Natalie.
When will you be posting the lecture recording?
I will also try to have that to you by tomorrow. By tomorrow. Great question. Miriam.
Professor, I'm a little bit confused.
Sure.
So help me out here. So in terms of the discussion, so the discussion post will, like, moving forward, will be only with the person that is in our group, right? For the
So-
rest of the class period, like whenever we post our initial, they'll be able to see, they'll respond to us, and then we'll see theirs. We'll respond to them on Thursday initial, and then the secondary is on Sunday. Is that correct?
Yeah, you don't sound confused to me. So
Okay. Well, I just bursted it all out. But,
no, you're right. So
Okay.
again, after this course or after this class, I'm going to break you guys out into your groups. That way, when you guys post your discussion, you're only going to see responses from other members in your group.
Okay,
And then you're just going to reply to that person only.
gotcha.
So you shouldn't see anyone else's discussion.
Okay.
But give me about an hour. You guys can start working on the
no, I
assignment.
just wanted to understand the dynamics of it, because like so far we have been seeing everyone and then we respond to one person or two. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that part correctly. And the second one is, so I did look at the rubric for the grading. It doesn't, so nowhere it mentions like how much is the length of our responses, like initial or secondary. Is there a limit, or obviously not pages, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm
There's
not
no-
missing that part.
There's no page limit.
Not page
But-
characters, sorry. Like, how
No.
much.
No.
Okay.
No
Words,
character limit.
actually words she was referring to the words limit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no character. I get what you're saying as far as the response. As long as your response to your peer is reflective, thorough. I'm not going to say you have to write 450 words. No, just make sure that it's not great job, love what you wrote there. Like, make it actually engaged and you'll be fine.
No, totally. But for what about the initial one?
For the initial one, same thing. There's no page limit. But
Okay.
then again, you want to make sure you're answering these questions thoroughly because it's going to help you with your final paper.
Okay.
So you don't want to just write 2 sentences. If you write 2
Okay.
sentences, you won't get full credit. But I'm
I
not
see.
expecting 8 pages either.
Okay. Okay. No, no, no.
I would say if you do about 2 paragraphs for each prompt, or 1 to 2 paragraphs, you'll be fine for each prompt.
You mean each question?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And then Shannon?
I don't know, maybe if it's possible, can we please get like the PowerPoints uploaded before lecture so like we could have it while you're lecturing?
Yeah, I could do
Yes,
that.
please. Yes. Can we have them before class so we can print them out and then add notes while, we're doing the.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I could do that. And then the last thing I just want to show you really quick, and then you guys will be free to go, is the only other thing that's due for this week. If you go here, is just to sign this form here. And that's an easy 10 points. So go ahead and just sign it, return it back to me, and you'll get your easy 10 points, okay? All right. Any other last minute questions? I will stay on after class for those of you who have questions. I know it was Asha and was it you, Shannon, who we're going to work on how we're going to do the genogram with you. But other than that, any other questions? Okay. Well, you guys have been awesome. Enjoy the rest of your free time. I will see you guys next week.
Thank you. Have a good.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay. So for you two, this assignment, I had to do something similar, was also hard for me because I'm not very close with my family either. So can you guys remind me of your guys' situation a little bit so I can see how we can navigate this for you guys and accommodate specifically?
Yeah, I'm adopted and I was in and out of foster care. I was thinking about it during class. I could probably, because I'm in contact with my birth mom, and I'm sure she could tell me stuff about my birth dad. I just don't know. They're all on drugs. I just don't know how accurate it is. But like if you don't care about that, then I could do my birth family and it's not an issue for me.
Okay. Yeah, I would say
you wanted my birth family or my like adopted family.
you could do either family. Either family is fine. Whichever family you think you could get the most information from so that you can actually do at least the 4 generation, I would say is best. And you're going to do as best as you can to complete the 4 generations. You might not know everything, and you could just write a note when you submit it. You know how you could write a note, just let me know that there was some information that you weren't able to gather because of X, Y, and Z. But like if the person is deceased, you're going to ask the closest family member any information that they know about that person. And they might not know a lot of details, but whatever details you got, you can implement that into your genogram.
Okay, I'm just worried about going like up to like the great grandparent level because I know my parents like don't even know who their parents are basically because like we're generational foster children.
Okay.
I do have a kid, so I could do grandparents, parents, myself, and my kid to be 4 if that's okay.
What you can also do too is you can incorporate the foster parent. So if they don't know the biological parent, you could just add the foster parent and just use the symbol that represents foster parent.
Okay, I know there was at least 5 because I had 5. My mom had 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a system baby.
Oh, okay.
How would that work? Do I just pick one, whichever one I liked the best?
The technical term would be to do all 5, but I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you. So if you want to just choose one,
yes. Okay. Okay.
You could just choose one. Okay.
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 Sounds good. I think I'm okay. I'll figure it out.
Okay, and if you have more difficulties, we'll touch base and we'll figure it out together, okay? I don't want you to stress out about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, email me if you need more help.
Will do. All right. Thanks. Bye, Asha.
Bye. Hello.
Hi. So with my family generation is big, like super, super big. My mom side is